Hello and welcome back to Reeling in the Piers, where we chat about and discuss all sorts of movies. My name is Gary O'Brien, and for today's episode of Classics with Cian, myself and Cian are talking about the 1956 epic western The Searchers. So stick around, we hope you enjoy. Cian O'Driscoll, hello, who are we? Are we well?
Very well now, Gary. How are you?
I'm not too bad. You're back with another classic. The second installment of Classics with Cian.
I know, and I'm so happy that this is going to be episode number 100. I can't believe that...
I have some bad news for you.
No, I know I won't be, but I was looking at the numbers, the countdown.
Everyone's talking to me about the numbers. I don't know what I'm doing yet. Leave me with it.
It's a big milestone coming, Gary.
It is a big milestone. I haven't decided yet. Leave it. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I haven't decided.
Are you going to have a party, like an expose kind of...
yeah, all big time. Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're inviting all the celebrities. Pierce Brosnan, and that's it. Just Pierce Brosnan.
Tim Higgins?
Who's that?
What was... Who's the guy that you got on your Instagram feed?
Oh, Joe Rooney.
Joe Rooney, sorry.
Joe Rooney, yeah. Tim Higgins? Oh, he plays Timmy Higgins in Kindle Scully. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was talking about... Yeah, he follows the Instagram, yeah. Whether he listens, who knows? If he is, hello, Joe Rooney. Thanks for listening. We love you and Father Ted.
I hope you like westerns.
I feel like that should be the intro. I should start doing that now instead. You know the way where I say, like, so stick around, we hope you enjoy? I should start saying, stick around, we hope you like westerns. Because that's most of what movies you pick. Because you're back with another western. Who could have saw it coming? And not only a western, but a western with John Wayne. And not only a movie with John Wayne, but a John Ford movie. Who did The Quiet Man?
I know. Yeah. Well, like, it was after The Quiet Man that... you kind of put the question to me where you asked what I think of John Wayne, or, you know, in The Quiet Man compared to his other performances. Like, how would I have ranked The Quiet Man? It got me thinking that, do you know what? The Searchers is probably my favourite film with him. So, yeah, said we'd give this one a go and see what you think. For me, this is my favourite performance of him. It's an outstanding movie, I think, because I think he plays a very... linear sort of character. He in most of his films, it's always the same type of character. So there's not much deviation. And in terms of that, I'd say this is his best performance of portraying that kind of character. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm happy to hear. Happy to hear your thoughts. What do you think of it?
Good. Because you're gonna get them, so whether you want to or not. So Cian, I think this is your 6th or 7th time on the podcast, and I think this is maybe the 5th or 6th western. Wait, no. So western wise, we definitely did Surf and Falls, Outlaw Josie Wales. There's that unreleased The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly episode that will never see the light of day. There's also I think that's it. So this is maybe our 3rd western, I'm gonna say, unless there's one I'm forgetting in the meantime.
Yeah, I think it's I lose track. I can't remember.
Yeah. So you're still on this pursuit to get me to like a western, and you're still gonna keep trying, because I thought this was... Look, my hot take about this movie is, and I think you're right.
Did you not like Surf and Falls?
Who's in Surf and Falls again?
Liam Neeson.
And who's acting beside him, Cian?
I can't remember.
No, I can't remember either. He looks like he's from Navan, though, I will say that much. And he's 100% definitely invited to the 100 episode party. I'm looking at you, Timmy Higgins. And also... No, so I had a fun time. I had a very fun time with Surf and Falls, actually. So, no, this is like one of the most western movies I've watched, because I think... So for anyone who doesn't know what it's about, Cian's going to explain it in a sec. But I think what's really important for people to know about this is one of the most popular westerns ever, first of all, and it's like I said, it's an iconic pairing between John Ford and John Wayne, and then also it's a movie that's been influential to some of the biggest directors of all time. So Spielberg, Scorsese, George Lucas have all talked about how this movie has gone on to inspire them in different aspects, and we'll get into a bit later. So it's quite a big milestone of a western movie. So if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen it, makes sense, because it's not really on my radar until I started doing a bit of research about this. But Cian, for anyone who doesn't know what it's about, can you explain it? But also, when did this get on your radar? When was this something that you were first exposed to? Put it that way.
Well, first exposed to this, I would have, like all of these movies so far, I would have watched this when I was very young. my dad is a particular fan of westerns as well. That's where I kind of got the liking for them. So we would have grown up in a house with, I don't know, other ones like Shane is another famous western movie, old movie. We would have grown up with that. This and True Grit. Again with John Wayne, movies like that, we would have grown up with all of them. So, you know, I would have watched it from a very young age. And like, I think, yeah, you have the habit of kind of describing these movies as, you know, Sunday afternoon movies where you throw them on and
RTE,
TG Caher,
yeah,
you know, even just throw them on Sunday afternoon, cup of tea after dinner, lunch, whatever, and so we would have watched it regularly growing up.
Yeah.
But this movie for me is class because it's a real adventure. You get lost in it, and I don't know. So
what's it about?
It's about a man, Ethan Edwards, John Wayne, who is returning from the American Civil War. He's fighting on the Confederate side, and he's coming back to his brother's house on the ranch in the middle of, I don't know, Midwestern.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the actual place. I think it's Monument Valley or something like that. Typical sort of plains, sandy, desert, you know, whatever. And, you know, it's basically about him coming home. And to speed through it very quickly, his home is attacked by a band of Indians, Comanche, and it's about them taking his niece and him organizing a party to go after them, to hunt them down, to bring her back, and just the search or the endeavor to catch up with them. And yeah, but it is kind of a bit about, you know, it's more than that, but that's the kind of plot of the movie. Basically, is for him to try and, you know, return his niece, bring her back. Basically, yeah.
To search for her.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Oh, it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. It's also based on a book, I believe. It's based on Frank S. Nugent, wrote the 1954 novel, and yeah, it was a critical and commercial success. It's been, like I said, considered a masterpiece and one of the greatest and most influential movies ever made. It was on many lists. I know the American, it's named the greatest American Western by the American Film Institute in 2008, and then also Entertainment Weekly named it the best Western as well. The British Film Institute of Sight and Sound magazine ranked it as the 7th best movie of all time on their 2012 International Survey of Film Critics, and in 2008 the French magazine, which I cannot pronounce the name of, but it's Cahiers du Cinéma, ranked the search as number 10 in their list of 100 best movies ever made. And I think for me, is it the best movie I've ever watched? No. But is it one of the best movies ever made? And I would say yes, because how they made this, and I didn't look at much of the behind the scenes of it, but just literally what's on screen is incredible. The production design, the scale of it, and it's even just the large sweeping pans of the planes. It's stunning and breathtaking. And I also read then as well that that's David Lean, who we talked a bit about before. He's the director of Lawrence of Arabia. He took a lot of inspiration from this movie for Lawrence of Arabia, for those big scenes out in the desert. So in terms of how the movie was made, and also, sorry, I know I'm just doing a bit of a rant, because I think it's important to tell you and the listener what I loved about this movie, because again, this is a classic with Cian, you pick these, I have thoughts on them, is that this is the first movie, it's one of the first movies ever made that had a making of documentary crew with it. Mm-hmm, so they actually had a crew to show them how they made the props and the sets and stuff like that. A film of the film. So yeah, so it's really rare to see a movie know that it's special when they're making it as well. So yeah, I think from that's what I took from this movie the most, is than just, like I said, the scale and the production of it. I think is incredible.
Like when you look at what they tried to do, you know, even the logistics of carting all the equipment out in the middle of the desert, you know, like it was an immense amount of work. So like a lot went into it. And yeah, like I know it's maybe not a film for everyone. Okay, if you don't like Westerns, but then, you know, certain things that brush it right off. That's you. But other things like, you know, maybe the plot isn't exciting enough, or maybe there's not enough action, but there's so many other subtleties, or like character developments and things that are really, really interesting that I kind of picked up more this time around because I haven't watched this film again in many years, but like when I was growing up watching this, you do get lost in the world. It's easy. And I think it's because the way the film is shot. It's it's easy to just get immersed in the desert, the search.
Yeah.
They're classic characters that you can kind of pretend to be if you're a kid growing up.
Yeah, 100%.
But then
could I be the annoying guy with the guitar? What's his name? Charlie? Hi there, that guy wanted to
you
burn
can be
him
Mose.
Is that Mose? Is that who I'm thinking of?
No, Mose is the bald guy who just keeps showing up randomly.
Yeah, I'll be Mose.
Mose knows.
Mose knows. I saw something about him being actually based on he's loosely based on an actual historical person called Mad Mose, and he was a half crazy Native American fighter of the American Southwest with a fondness of rocking chairs. So there you go. The more you know.
The more you Mose.
The more you Mose. There you go.
No, like it's an incredible movie for so many reasons, but like this time round watching it, I was just kind of taken aback by I don't know, the character development of Ethan Edwards throughout the movie. Like it's he's really, like, growing up watching it, you're kind of thinking, oh, he's the hero, he's the big cool guy, whatever, and then watching it this time around, I'm like, man, this guy is an asshole.
Yes.
He's so, like, he's not a good guy.
No, because I literally have in my notes at one point, because I've only watched 3 John Wayne movies to date, and that's True Grit, The Quiet Man, and The Searchers. And if I'm perfectly honest, Cian, he kind of plays the same person in all 3, which is a loud, arrogant man. But this one, I think you're right in that I think it's his best role. I don't think it's his best performance, but I think the nuances of this role are just really, really interesting. And again, we'll talk about it a bit later, but just to focus on what you were saying there, which is just like, I didn't know whether he's just an arrogant man or he's an arrogant actor. I'm yet to find out, Cian, because I haven't seen him be neither yet, because all of his characters are arrogant. Is he arrogant? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I will watch enough movies to make a decision.
No, like that's the thing. Like, the reason I picked this one as my favorite one of him is because I think a lot of the other westerns that he's in, or that he's done with John Ford as well, is that, like, usually there's a love interest, and usually he's playing this kind of character who's a bit of a same as the Quiet Man.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, that's taken away, and what's left is what we see on the film. So it's stripped back to the bare bones of what a character, when there's nothing left to lose, really.
Yeah. And it's funny you mention it, that it's your favorite role, because it's also John Wayne's favorite role, to the point in which he named his youngest son Ethan in homage to this movie.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
Oh, that is interesting. But yeah, no, so like there's many things to like about this movie. I mean, but it's got a fairly simple plot. And we discussed briefly beforehand, like maybe it could have been done, like a remake could be done now where they split it, into a 5 or 6 part miniseries or something like that. But for this movie, I felt maybe there was, I do have some bad points about it as well, watching it, with fresher eyes now. But yeah. No.
Yeah. And I guess one thing that's interesting, and it's a theme in a lot of our episodes, is that you pick movies that have a how do you say it, a slow burn, which I would recall boring as fuck. But this movie, so this is my problem with this movie sometimes as well, is it's not a slow burn so much as it's like breakneck pace, in that, like, within like 5 minutes they could have jumped 5 years.
Yeah.
Like it's very much like, and they're here now after having done all this stuff, and you're just like, whoa, let me just acclimatize to, because the actors don't age, there's no signs of any aging, it's just like so, like, for me it was just like the pace moved very quickly. But like you say, the story is quite simple, but it's really interesting the characters they meet along the way, and how those interactions shape the characters to the decisions they make towards the end of the movie. And I think because it moves so fast, those decisions or those changes don't feel quite natural, which is why I was saying to you is I'd actually love to see this remade, well, what I'd love to look, I'd be very intrigued to see it remade, but like I said, kind of like it's a classic sign of a movie made into a book. It kind of feels rushed. So like it's a case of like I would have liked to see maybe a bit more time with each of those characters they meet along the way, and maybe just told in a bit more of a I don't know, a bit more delicate way. Like, does the Swedish man have to sound like the Swedish chef? Does the Native
Was he
Americans
Swedish or German?
I don't know, Keen, but my God, I was like, this guy's putting on accent, and it doesn't feel right. And I think that's another thing.
It didn't fit. Well, do you know what? I appreciate the detail because because I remember reading about this like years ago in a history or something. Is that a lot of those Midwestern settlers were not just like they were from all over Europe.
Yeah, 100%.
So like it's a nice little detail, to include.
Yeah, but it's just more like Brad, his son, has a normal voice, and then we meet the dad, and the dad's just going full Swedish chef from the Muppets. And I was like, okay, I'm not ready for that. So there's elements of the movie where it's kind of it's aged poorly, but what I would tell people is, this movie came out in 1956. That's a movie that's 80 years old. Like, you can't hold people from 80 years ago to the same standards that you hold people to making movies these days. Like, there's some horrendous, obviously, not depictions of Native Americans, but there's like white people playing Native Americans, and it looks off. But like I said, it's 80 years ago. It's like this was very commonplace. And I think there's a really interesting discussion around this in terms of, like you say, it's funny you mentioned that you thought John Wayne was the good guy when you were a kid, but now looking back on it, you kind of look at his sort of hatred for Native Americans as nearly a character flaw rather than a sort of a sense of bravado. And I think that's what John Ford was kind of going for. He probably didn't execute it that well, but you can tell there's those, like, even the sense of like...
They're moving away from this sort of black and white...
Yeah. Exactly. We'll talk about it a bit in spoilers, but like there's a really interesting point about his character later on that we'll get into. But that's a good point. Like let's pick a good point to tell people to fuck off and go watch this. So is there anything else you want to talk about this movie from a non-spoiler point of view that might be able to win people over to go watch it?
No. I mean, like it's an expansive story. That's not true. The plot is fairly simplistic, but the
twists and turns are what?
Like, yeah, the filming of it, the production. It's beautiful. The production is beautiful. It's got a great score.
Yes, unbelievable score.
Like it's something to, if you want to get lost for a couple of hours, it's a great movie to watch, and it's very classic. It's got a nice classic feel to it. Yeah. There are maybe some more sinister sort of undertones and things going on, but like it's a good story just to immerse yourself in if you're looking for something classic to watch. Yeah. But after that, then I don't really have anything to say apart, without spoilers.
Yeah, I would say go off and watch. I tell you what, if you're looking for a classic movie to watch with your father or elderly relative, not elderly relative. Is your dad old? I don't know. I don't mean you, Cian. I mean the listener. But like, hey, it's a good. If you see it on RT2 and you're chilling out on a Sunday, go and watch it. There's some really cool nuggets of interesting filmmaking going on in this. There's a zoom shot that I particularly enjoyed and I would recommend. Watch it for the zoom shot. There's a good zoom shot in this movie.
What zoom shot was that?
I'll tell you, I'll save spoilers. Yeah, I don't know where you want to jump off with this. Is there any particular scene, character moment, anything else that just jumps out to you as something to get stuck into right now?
Where to start? I mean, like, I guess from the get-go, the very, like, maybe the very first scene, I suppose, is a good point.
Here we go. This is going to be a long one. There we go. Right. Buckle up.
No. We can skip through it quickly. But the very first scene is kind of interesting because he's coming in off the desert, right? So you get a scene initially of, like, a nice, wholesome family or whatever. And then suddenly, you see this guy coming in off the plains and you're... I don't know. This time around, I got a sense of foreboding. Like he's a bit, there's something coming with him. There's trouble coming with him. So you have this idyllic, and it's something I picked up on a lot this time around is that whenever the movie is shot looking inside the houses, they're always very neat and tidy and composed. But every time you look outside, because I must have counted like 15 or 16 shots looking through a doorway in this movie.
Yes, including the last shot as well, which I think really lends to your point, actually, in that, like, everything was kind of calm at the end, and the only bit of chaos remained outdoors.
Outdoors.
John Wayne.
Like, so that's something I picked up on this time round, and seeing him come like through the desert to the house, the little ranch where his brother and his brother's wife are. It's just, you kind of get a sense of foreboding. So you kind of know that maybe, okay, from now on, there's maybe things are going to go downhill, throughout the movie. But
what's interesting is he didn't cause that chaos. As in, the chaos was always kind of happening. He just so happened to arrive at the same time as the chaos. So the chaos being is that like a few of the neighbors' cows were being killed, and John Wayne went to go investigate, but it turns out that was a distraction for the Native Americans to
I kind of nearly disagree, because
you kind of nearly, or you do. Come on, disagree with me. Come on, fight me.
I've been trying to in line with the idea of the podcast stuff, I've been trying to kind of brush up on my observation skills for the movies and stuff, and character developments and things like this. So I was kind of paying a bit more attention this time around, and I wrote down a few notes when I was watching.
Good. I'm so glad it took you 7 movies to finally go, I might start paying attention to these.
No, because this time around, like, this movie is particular, because I was very interested in his character, because, okay, you say that he didn't really cause any of it, but I would say that something would have happened anyway with him and this character, because...
Yeah, fair. Yes, particularly Martin.
Not just Martin, like, you see that, but, like, also, early on, it's noted that he has a criminal record anyway. He says that the Confederate War isn't over for him. There's loads of telltale signs that he's still he's got this loads of resentment and anger in him still. He's looking for something to spark because he really
wants a fight with the
the
guys who make him try to do the speech or the pledge to the United States, and he doesn't do that.
He doesn't want to do it. He's looking. It's not that he's actively looking. He's passively looking for a spark to set him on another vendetta or another something, and something I picked up on this time around. I don't know, is it just the time that this film was made, but some of his interactions with his brother's wife were also really strange. So I don't know, is this just a period piece kind of thing, or was there a bit more going on there? I don't know.
So according to John Wayne in a 1974 interview, John Ford hinted throughout the movie that Ethan had an affair with his brother's wife and was possibly the father to Debbie, so Debbie being the one who gets kidnapped. So that meant that Ethan's thirst for vengeance stemmed not from the murder of his brother, but of the woman Ethan had loved. And then this was also a subtle hint that many viewers missed at the time, so it's not... and
I don't know how many times I've watched this, but at a younger age, I would have missed out on all of this. I've been more interested in the adventure part, but paying a bit more attention to it now, it's something I picked up on. And it's an important detail, because I think trouble would have found Ethan Edwards anyway in this movie at some point. It's not just the Comanches. And I think they were just... because racism is a huge part of this movie also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
both in terms of the story and how they made it.
And how they made it. No. It's really... There's some really bad scenes, but I don't know, is he inherently racist, or is he just really, really, really angry and he needs something to direct his anger at? And it's just that the Comanches are in a convenient, a target for this.
Would you like to know a fun little trivia Easter egg that might explain what your point is?
Do. Throw it out.
There is a significant portion of the film's plot is revealed on a throwaway prop that most casual viewers rarely notice. So just before the Native Americans raid the Edwards homestead, there's actually a tombstone for Ethan's mother, John Wayne's mother, that Debbie hides behind, and actually reveals the source of his hatred towards the Comanche, because the tombstone says, "Here lies Mary Jane Edwards, killed by the Comanches, May 12th, 1852, a good wife and a mother in her 41st year." So, if people have paid attention... Nobody does. And that's the point. That's what I didn't pick up on it. I only just read it on the internet, Cian. So, it's funny you mention it, because that's the whole thing I think is really interesting about this movie, because he has a distinct hatred towards Martin, who is Debbie's adopted brother, so therefore his adopted nephew some way. I don't know how it works out. But he's like 1/18th Cherokee or something. No, 1/8 Cherokee.
Yeah.
1/8. And that seems to set off Ethan, and he immediately doesn't trust him. And he has this hatred towards the Comanches throughout.
Even though he found them and rescued them.
Exactly. But we don't really know why he hates them so much, because, and even there's a point later on when we find out, again, we're in spoilers now, so we can talk about it, where Debbie has been with them so long, been with these Comanches for so long, that she ends up just becoming one, and is one of the many wives of the leader, who's called Scar, not to be confused with the lion from The Lion King. But and John Wayne's Ethan's immediate reaction is, oh, well, I have to kill her now.
I don't know, is it an immediate reaction? Like, that's the thing.
He takes out a gun and spins it round and is ready to shoot her.
At the end, you know, the whole point of the searches is that this whole movie is about him and Martin going to look for her, and throughout the movie his focus slowly shifts to a point where you start to realize, okay, you don't actually know what Ethan is going to do once he finds her.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not instant, it's a gradual change. Like him and Martin, Paulie, or whatever, they start off looking for, I think, what's her name? Lucy and Debbie.
Yeah.
They set out looking for them, and that's the goal, is to find them, rescue them, bring them home. They find Ethan finds Lucy, and she's dead and died in a terrible way or whatever.
Yeah.
But slowly throughout this journey, which we don't know, it might take years or whatever, they travel all along the Midwest, way up north and everything, and you really get a sense of Ethan's hatred, his deep resentment, anger, really focus in on the Comanche, and you start to think that maybe, once he actually finds Debbie, what's he going to do?
Yeah.
You don't know, because we're given a few scenes where they find women who have been held captive by the Comanche, and they've been completely turned insane, traumatized. So like you don't fully understand how he's going to react once he finds her. So I don't think it's instant. I think it's a gradual change, which is part of his character development.
When I said instant, I just more so meant that for so long you thought he was going to rescue her, and then when there's that point at which Debbie says to Martin, "I'm going to stay," that's when I was just like, and he goes, "Oh, he's so ready to kill her without any." Like, he's like, "Step away, Martin." But it's actually a really funny point. Not really funny. It's a really interesting point you made there, just about, you know, him just wanting to seek vengeance and stuff like that. And I think there's a really interesting thing in the fact that when you consider he's a Confederate soldier, i.e. someone who lost a war, and when you said he doesn't accept that loss, that he's still chasing a victory whatever way he can, and it's almost like this whole movie is him trying to prove that he can be victorious, albeit against a completely different enemy, i.e. the Comanche. So it's just, and I think that those are the sort of nuances to this character that I think is way more sort of fleshed out than maybe a Quiet Man or a True Grit. But
exactly, and that's why, like, I like this movie even more after watching it this time, just for his character alone, because it's so raw. Like, it's so there's nothing brushed up, there's nothing romanticized about his character. It's the indifference to everyone, because I don't know, is he inherently racist? Like, okay, he has a hatred, but like, he also is really dismissive of everybody.
Yes.
Even like, okay, so initially the whole thing that sets this search is that a neighbor's farm is raided. The Comanche take all the cows and the cattle, and a group of men from the local villages come round, and they go off to try and rescue the cattle or whatever, not knowing that was just a trap to lead all the men out of the village while the Comanche could go back to the village and raid Ethan's brother's home. But in this group is a reverend, or another, I think he was another commander or captain of the Confederate Army, and Ethan just has no respect for him. Like, like you said earlier, one of the scenes, he doesn't accept, he doesn't take the oath. He's dismissive of everyone. Like, he is a lone wolf, a lone soldier. Yeah. and he's just angry at the world.
There's a little smile in your face that I just think that makes you think he's like, I could be like him. I could do.
And you ask, whenever we talk about these podcasts, it's like, this should just be a chat about why you like this movie. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I don't know. Some part of me would have loved to have lived in this time.
I have a whole segment around this. I have a whole thing ready to go, which is I literally sent you the first note I took of this movie, which is them in their, like you say, very idyllic house. It's all beautiful. There's like all these blue plates. I don't know about the blue plate. There's something about the blue plates just stuck out to me. And there's like their nice wooden door. And my first note is, Cian would love to live in this house. And I just think you are such a man out of time, Cian O'Driscoll, that I just feel like the Midwest would have been perfect for you in this time and age. I just think there's something about it that just would be very...
Like, it was just good, honest work. You'd go out, work for 8 hours a day, you'd come home, and you'd know you did something.
There you go. Look, no. I'm sure you can find something over there. Some sort of... Well, look, you're living a bit of a spaghetti western life anyway at the moment.
Yes, sadly. Without the western.
Yeah, just spaghetti. I just want to talk a bit about also just John Wayne. I'm just going to bring this up because, again, I have some points. It's just... Okay, so actually, yeah, no, I suppose before I get into that, I just want to talk about how, like, the movie... It moves along very, like I said, a bit of a rapid pace. So it kind of like, it feels weird to kind of go, and then they meet this person, then they meet this person. So I think it's great to just kind of talk about, like we say, that sort of character development. And we've kind of talked a bit about John Wayne's character. And then in regards to the sort of supporting actor for this role, Martin Prawley, like I said, that's sort of the guy who was adopted. He's played by a guy called Jeffrey Hunter. And he's sort of that interesting character in that he just sort of has this sort of love for the family that took him in.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of fueling him. So it's really interesting, sort of that comparison or contrast of John Wayne's character Ethan is going out of hatred, and then Martin Prawley is kind of going out of love, and the two of them are yet they don't really want to work together, but yet they both have that sort of same goal, and they're working together to sort of like you say, get those girls back.
No, like, sorry, and that's it exactly. Sorry, that's where my original point was leading to, is that like they, they're all the men of the villages are let out, and when they come back, the village is raided or whatever. But then I think three of them go out to search for Lucy and Debbie, who've been taken. One guy gets killed, and then it's just Martin Pauly. Brad, I can't remember his name.
No, yeah. Brad was Lucy's fiance or husband or something.
And the quarterback.
His quarterback, yeah.
But no, it's then Martin Pauly and Ethan who continue the search from then onwards, and they have this like contrasting relationship, and you have this barbaric sort of hatred-driven, Ethan versus this hope-filled, idealistic sort of Martin Pauly, who I don't think, and okay, spoilers, they eventually find her. I don't think they would have found her, or one person would have found her by themselves. They both needed each other to find Debbie. Yeah. So it's an interesting contrast, and they needed each other.
Yeah. Now, one of the other issues I sort of have with this movie, besides, like I say, some of the sort of the pacing of it, is it's like there's another movie in this movie that I don't really get. Was when we're with and I'm going to say they're Swedish, only because their names are Lars Jorgensen and Mrs. Jorgensen. They have a daughter, or I don't know who it is. It's like, what's her name? Laurie?
Laurie, yeah, that's it.
Laurie Jorgensen. And there's a weird thing with her and
she
Martin.
Gets a letter.
She gets a letter. That's a great letter, by the way. Because he's basically like, hey, I'm still hunting for Debbie. By the way, accidentally married someone. Whoops. And yeah, we're killing some people. We're still looking for Debs. I'm going to spell your name wrong. By the way, here's my full name. I definitely don't love you. Even though they kind of fancy each other, and she just wants any hint of like affection from this man, but he's so...
And one letter in 5 years is not enough.
Women these days, that's what you would have loved, Cian, back in the day. Women only wanting one letter every 5 years. None of this constant texting, all this SMSing nonsense. Back in your day.
Back in my day. Oh, I wish.
Yeah, that shit just that all stuff felt very out of place for me. That was when the movie was at its weakest, because we work up to such a peak towards finding them, and we find out where Debbie might be, and there's an attack and John Wayne is shot, and it's all like, what's going to happen? And then we go back to some wedding scene for a bit of comedy. Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of that the John Ford Quiet Man movie, where there's this beautiful thing about, like, you know, his missus trying to get all her stuff, and then there's that WWE brawl at the end where it's like you almost had to just appease the producers by having in something for, I don't know, it just lost me. Like, I didn't get that.
I agree. You know, this time around watching it, it really took me out of the movie a little bit, and I don't know, was it put in just for the comedic? Okay, like the plot has some relevance, but overall it doesn't really add too much to the story. And, you know, I was kind of just wondering about, I don't really have I can't think of a rationale for it, but when I tried to think about it, I'm just wondering if it's to do with the scale of the search. Okay, so, like, I don't know how big this movie was when it came out in terms of globally, how far did it reach, but okay, if it's brought out in America, okay, Americans know the scale of their country. If a search takes 5 years, how on horseback, where do these guys go? I mean, my only thing is that maybe this intervening part of the wedding and this whole letter scene is to kind of give a sense of how long Martin and Ethan were out searching for Debbie. You know, like, you know, you travel for 5 years on horseback, where are you going to go? You know, it's a massive expanse of land, and for me, that's the only kind of logical explanation I can come up with for why they included it.
Cian, you are getting better at this movie stuff, because that's a very, very good point. That makes a lot of sense.
You know, I couldn't think of anything else. Yeah. But for me, I think they could have done it better, because it did take me out of the movie a little bit. It slowed down the pace. But at the same time, I don't know how else you'd account for the fact that, okay, these two guys are gone for 5 years. How do you how do you bring it back home a little bit? Do you know what I mean?
Taking your time, lads. Just get it done. Like, what's this wasting around, taking the piss?
But at the same time, it's a good indication of how driven they are. Do you know what I mean? It's a good indication of... And like we just said, their motivations.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Again, but that's what I mean by, like, because of the pace, I got lost a bit in terms of, like you say, how long it takes for them to do the search. Because,
like, for me, what kind of shocked me a little bit was that suddenly there's this whole letter scene, and then suddenly it flashes back to Ethan and Paulie on horseback, and suddenly they're in the snow. And I'm just thinking, like, how far north have they gone? Do you know what I mean? Like, how, because it's not said how long they've been traveling, apart from in the letter it says 5 years. So for me, it's just like, wow, like, Martin is obviously driven for this love of his family, and then Ethan is driven for just this blind rage or this vendetta that he needs to complete. And you're thinking in the background that this is slowly building up to a confrontation between the two of them. You can't see...
Which it does. One of them got you, one of them shot the other.
Like, this is the thing, you know, and it's a really interesting character development, relationship between the two of them, because that point, the more I thought about it after watching it, like, for me, it did take me out of the movie, but, you know, on reflection, it kind of just, it made me realize that it's slowly building up tension between the two characters.
Yeah.
Their motivations are clashing.
Yeah.
They start not to trust each other. Yeah. Or not that they don't not trust each other. They start to not trust each other, but it's slower than that. Yeah. And I think Ethan's character brushes it off as experience.
I feel like the words slow burn are coming along shortly. We haven't heard the word slow burn yet on the podcast. I haven't said them yet. No, not yet. But yes, look, as we kind of wrap up here, I think we've kind of covered off the main sort of characters and their sort of development throughout this story. And like I said, there's a lot of sort of twists and turns in the meantime as well. We've talked about the production. Is there anything else, I guess, that's worthwhile of kind of mentioning about this movie before we sort of wrap up?
Yeah, okay. Like, I suppose I had 3 scenes that I wanted to...
Let's go! Cian's 3 scenes!
Talk about. The first scene is... So you mentioned that... Like, I didn't really do too much prep for this, really. But one scene that did kind of make me think of other scenes was I'm a big fan of Star Wars. So basically, where they return back to the ranch to see the house burning, it's a complete. I had to Google which came out first. Obviously, this came out first, but I just had to Google to be sure because it's a carbon copy, or at least the Star Wars version is a carbon copy of where Luke comes back to his aunt and uncle's house burning, and the look on Ethan's face, and it's I don't know what they call it, but like the camera pans from the house burning to Ethan's face, back to the house burning, back to Ethan's face. It's like a double pan or whatever, and it's you just see the horror or the destruction, and it just reminded me of Star Wars, and I was like, that must be a big scene.
Absolutely no coincidence, Keen, because like I'd said before, Spielberg, Scorsese,
and there's also no dialogue actually. Sorry,
and a load of other people who I don't actually know have mentioned before that they were influencing this movie.
And then the other scene was, I think, where like it's not too long after that one where the group of men from the surrounding villages with the Reverend and John Wayne and Marty and all the others, they go out searching for the Comanche. And suddenly there's two groups of Comanche flanking them either side. And this whole scene for me was class because...
Is this the one on the river?
Before they get to the river.
Before they get to the river, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like you have the settlers, so Ethan and the Reverend and whatever, like riding in a straight line, directly straight down the camera on horseback. And then you have the Comanche flanking them either side, going up and down over these like hills or whatever. But you get the sense of just convergence, and slowly the music starts to build, like, and it's a huge scene of tension, and you don't know who is going to act first. Like, it's really tense. I was like, I couldn't remember, from all the times I watched it when I was younger, I couldn't remember who acts first. Do the settlers start to ride or shoot first, or do the Comanche start to attack first, or what? It's a really good scene in terms of just building the tension. For me, that was really impressive.
But also, just on that scene, by the way, as well, my biggest thing was the horses running into the river and falling on cue. Like, back in the days, how did they train horses to, like, fucking fall on cue? But not only fall on cue, but fall in water on cue and not, like, kill the people on horseback. Incredible. It's just like, and there's one scene in particular later on a horse that I'm going to mention after your scene, but, like, there's one scene in particular on a horse that I'm blown away by. But sorry, what's your last scene, or what's your third favourite scene?
My third favourite scene is the last one. It's the
one about going down the hill?
No, it's the very end scene. Is the doorway scene where, and I don't know, should we save it till later? We both discuss.
I tell you what, can I talk about the scene I have? Because it ties into your scene so much. There's a scene where they run down a big fucking hill, super steep, and I'm gonna say it's an actress playing Debbie being the niece that's kidnapped. That's definitely not a woman, because I could so tell it's a lad. It's like a stunt performer. It's some stunt lad. And she's like running down this steep hill with like rocks in boots flawlessly. And it's all this beautiful one shot. And it's kind of shot through a cave as well. Like you're saying, that's all that doorway scenes. And then like I assume Clint Eastwood, because horse and race and whatever, westerns.
Cowboy.
Like, he's coming, and he's chasing on the horse down this steep hill. And it's like this person running away. And there's such tension, not only from a narrative
safety
perspective, but like you say, from a safety thing of like, these actors are not safe. And then she stumbles and falls. And this is the big climactic scene. If you're like you kind of said, we do not know what's going to happen when Ethan meets Debbie, and he rushes towards her, and he just fucking, you don't know what and he just picks her up, puts her on the horse, and brings her home. Yeah. And I think that was the scene where I was like, to sort of have such a climactic action scene mixed with climactic emotional payoff. It was just masterful in that, like, there was no overindulgence in like how many shots they had to do or camera movements. It was all one shot, and it was all practical as well. And like, that's what I mean. Like, this movie, the production of it, it's so well made. But like you said, it leans into like what you were saying there, and like the last shot and like your third favorite scene so well.
No, like, you're dead right. I would have ranked that, fourth or fifth. My favorite scene.
All right, that's fine. Yeah,
no, it's true. Like you don't know what he's going to do, so it's an emotional payoff. And I think he himself, the character, decides in that moment. Because, I don't know how many years in total it's been, maybe 6, 7, 8 years, 5, I don't know. But to finally hold her, that physical connection of holding his niece, maybe the woman he loved, potentially his daughter, holding her again physically. Do I kill her? Is she really a settler now, or has she become a Comanche? It's a huge tension point, and it's really well done. But then that leads into like my favorite scene, and I didn't care too much about this when I was younger, but at the end it kind of hit me this time around, is because he delivers Debbie back to, I can't remember who he hands her to. It's an old woman anyway, or she back to this farmstead ranch, and they all arrive at the doorway at the porch. And it's shot from inside the ranch, looking outwards at the desert or the plains. And everyone, there's no real dialogue. He just hands her. It's a time of celebration. He hands her off, and everyone walks inside slowly. But he stays outside, and no one even acknowledges him after that. Like, everyone looks. He hands her off, and then he stands to the side, and then everyone slowly files into the house. And then he slowly walks up to the doorway. The doorway and inside is all dark. Looking out is bright but wild and desert-like. And he kind of just folds his arms, unsure, as if you're like a child going to school for the first day. You don't know what you're meant to do, And it just, for me, it's like, okay, here's a character who has no idea what he's meant to do in this social situation. Like, he's not built for this. He's not designed for that. He's a soldier. He's a warrior. He's not meant for peaceful times.
Like, he's off to, like, he finished Civil War, he came to this, he's on to that.
Exactly, but he's at a loose end because the search is over. The thing he's been doing for the last 6 years has suddenly come to an end.
He's the founder. He found her.
But he just turns around and he walks slowly away into the desert, throughout this doorway. And it's... for me, it was just class. Like, he's cut loose. There's no place for him in the rest of the movie or whatever story follows on from this.
Searchers 2. I can't believe she got lost again.
Taken 2.
Taken 2.
No. So for me, that was my favourite scene.
No, that's very fair. Cian O'Driscoll, anything else to add about this movie before we wrap up today?
No, I mean, like, apart from that, I'd say go watch it if you're looking for, if you have an easy 2 or 3 hours to lose on a Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon.
It's on IT. 100%. I agree. I don't think, like I said, I love how it was made. I love the production elements of it, and I think it's well worth watch for that reason alone. Cian O'Driscoll, thank you so much again for coming back on the podcast. You're back again. You've done 2 episodes in the space of like a couple of months. That's impressive going, I have to say. Thank you so much. I know.
I'm just hoping that once you start making money, you'll give me a job. I'm waiting for that call.
You and me both. I also want to say thanks to anyone who's listened to this or any of the other ones. If you would like to keep up to date with the podcast, there are a couple of things you can do. You can follow at Reeling in the Piers on Instagram. We put the clips on TikTok. You can also follow the YouTube, where we put the full audio podcast up there as well. You can follow myself on the Letterboxd. I'm yet to convince Cian to get a Letterboxd, but just give me a couple more years and I can do it. If you'd like to contact the show, there's a couple of ways to do it. There is a Q&A on this podcast on Spotify that you can mention any sort of comments or queries or questions that you might have, or you can email reelinginthepiers@gmail.com. You be sure to subscribe and follow on Spotify and Apple. Give us some 5 stars. Give us some 5 stars. Why not? Like, that's all I ask. And most importantly, if there are any other classics with Cian you would like to see happen, do let us know. Cian, any sort of tidbits or hints or what you're going to pick next?
Oh, I don't know. I was kind of thinking Ben-Hur, or there's another one with Charlton Heston. I think it's Charlton Heston. El Cid is another class one.
Ben-Hur is 4 hours, and I swear to God, if you say the word slow burn, I'm going to murder you. I cannot do a 4-hour slow burn.
It's going to be Ben-Hur.
For fuck's sake.
Judah Ben-Hur, yeah, it's got Jesus in it.
Okay, so I'm gonna love it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's got Jesus in it, so or El Cid is another favorite. So yeah, Either or.
Options.
Yeah.
Many options. Right, we'll have to see.
We'll go for the 4-hour one.